Welcome to this episode of Healthy and Happy. I'm Waveney Martinborough, and our topic for today is beat high blood pressure. It's like David and Goliath. Our presenter, Dr. George Guthrie.
So there they stood. Goliath, a fully armored giant, almost 9 feet tall. A little boy named David. But wonder of wonders, the boy killed the giant. You know, today high blood pressure looms over us like Goliath, a giant. And he keeps taunting us over and over again. But the good news is that he can be conquered. So, first of all, Doc, tell us, what is hypertension?
That's an interesting correlation, the giant kind of after us. Hypertension is high blood pressure. That is the pressure that the heart has to push against. The blood, of course, against the blood vessels. When the blood pressure cuff is put on, the pressure is on the arm. As the pressure is let off, where the blood first squirts through is a measure of the heart's hardest pressure. And then when the sound goes away of the blood squirting through, that's considered to be the resting pressure. Normal is less than 140/90, although the lower, the better. There's not a cut point that says everything above that is bad and everything below it is good.
I heard it's called the silent killer. Why
It is
silent?
the silent killer because it has really no symptoms until you're hit with the big one. It might be a stroke, it might be a heart attack, but the event happens quickly, but the hypertension itself has very few symptoms.
Okay, so what causes it?
Well, the causes are many, but the most common kind of hypertension is called essential hypertension, which, interestingly enough, means essentially the doctors aren't sure. Of course, as time has gone on, science has begun to help us with that, and we now understand that it has something to do with inflammation in the blood vessels. The blood vessels lose their ability to relax, and they're a little bit smaller, and there's more water in the pipes, so the pressure goes up.
Okay. Now in our story of David and Goliath, David slew the giant with a sling and a stone. Of course, he gathered 5 stones.
That's true.
So can you share with us a few stones?
Some
that we
stones
can use?
to slay this giant hypertension. Well, the first one I would choose would be diet, with what you eat.
Okay.
You can actually help to slay this giant by eating foods that are high in fiber, high in water, and low in fat. Those particular foods help to lower the blood pressure. Even beans, for example, help to lower the blood pressure, as do fruits and vegetables and other such things. One of the things that we think is in play here is something called potassium. You've probably heard of potassium. When potassium goes up, our blood pressure is helped to come down. It's not the direct cause, but it's one of those things that can make a difference. Now, what foods have a lot of potassium in them? I'll bet you say
Bananas.
Bananas. Beans have about 3 times as much.
Wow.
Okay. I like to say we're human beings. We should eat plenty of these. Okay? Another thing we can do is to decrease the sugar in our diet, because sugar in the blood tends to increase inflammation, especially when it's up for a long time. Another thing we can do is decrease the red meat. Red meat has a lot of saturated fat in it. Saturated fat tends to make the blood vessels a little bit stiffer and makes the blood pressure go up. If one is going to use dairy products, better to use the low-fat kind, just to get rid of the saturated fat. And I suppose the last thing on our diet list would be to be careful not to overeat. Be careful of what you put on your plate. You don't want the serving size to be too much. Just using a smaller plate can make a difference. So there you go, stone 1.
Okay, stone 1, diet. What about stone 2?
Stone 2 is exercise.
Okay.
Okay? Exercise helps to lower the blood pressure for probably a variety of reasons. And it's the best exercise is the moderate kind. When you first start to exercise, your blood pressure goes up just a little bit, and as you exercise enough, the blood vessels and your muscles open up and the blood pressure will drop down. If you keep exercising and exercise really hard, it'll go back up, but that moderate exercise is the best place. And the neat thing about exercise is it's not as how hard you exercise that brings your blood pressure down. It's actually how long you exercise.
Okay.
So if in the morning, for example, I were to run for 15 minutes or walk for 15 minutes, the blood pressure lowering effect would be the same through the day. So that's good news too. You don't have to kill yourself trying to get that blood pressure down doing your exercise. Just something moderate can make a difference.
Okay. I think we have time for one more stone.
Okay.
What would that be?
Well, the third stone, let's call it stress management, okay? When we're nervous and uptight, it tends to make the nerves that go to the blood vessels constrict them more. So if we can have calmness in our hearts, that can help. One of the things that can be beneficial is something that's called meditation. Now, worldly meditation usually focuses on finding the strength within. I find it much more helpful to look at the love of my Heavenly Father for me. As I look to Him, I can have calmness and peace in my heart. Thankfulness, by the way, is one of those things that is strongest in helping us to keep that stress and that blood pressure under control.
Meditation. Now, we don't want to mix that up with medication.
Oh, right.
What about medication?
There is a place for medication. Hypertension is the silent killer, and even though you can't feel anything, it needs to be brought down. And we have medications that can control it. They don't necessarily deal with the underlying cause, but they will help while you work on getting the 3 stones right where they belong.
Okay. Thank you so much for sharing. So diet, exercise, managing one's stress. If we use those stones, we can probably slay our giant and keep hypertension under control.
Good.
These are excellent strategies. Be sure to view part 2 of this episode.